back. Hope you're having a good day. This is another one of my root over rock projects. It's a Ficus Microcarpa. I call this root over rock number 1 because it is the first one I put together. Considering all the mistakes I've made throughout time since I started the hobby, which was just about 4 years ago now, it turns out to be one of my better ones too. Kind of strange that it's actually my first one. I have had, some die. I've had some that I've abandoned the rock altogether. But this one is turning out pretty nicely, I think. It's been in this pot for less than 2 years. I know I repotted it after I started the channel, and the channel is right around 2 years old now. So I know it's been in this pot for less than 2 years. Today I'm going to go ahead and just cut it all the way back. I haven't done anything to it since December. It was towards the end of December that I pruned it and got wire on it, and just left it alone since then. Left the wire on, and maybe a bit too long. I've actually had some distractions in my life. Haven't had a chance to work on too many trees. Most of those distractions are now done. So I'm going to start off by working on this guy. But first, I want to show you guys this one. This was a project I did about 3 weeks ago. And I got asked, and I get asked on many of my videos, like, why did you cut everything back? And what happens is when you cut everything back, you get all this back budding. And the leaves come back much smaller. The idea is it also comes back much fuller. And you can see just in 3 weeks how much this is leafed out. If you did watch that video, I left these leaves here because I wanted to get some strength in there, because I didn't want all of the branches and leaves to be on this side of the tree. I wanted to encourage this branch to develop a little bit more. Seems to be doing its job. It even has a couple little buds coming off of that for some extra branching. And then, obviously not on video because it's almost microscopic to see, but some of these buds, around this time when I notice that the tree is, back budding and recovering well, I take out a lot of this growth that just comes right up underneath branches and right in the crotches of the branches. Those are where you don't want branches to form, and then you can get some more energy out to the end. And while I've got this in here, I'll just point out, I kind of bounce back and forth between this being my favorite type of tree, or my favorite type of ficus anyway, and then compared to the tiger bark one, and that the tiger bark grows much quicker. I think that as the branches thicken, they remain a little more flexible, so you can kind of play with them a little bit more. But if you notice, well, first let me just take out a couple of these. But if you notice on the tiger bark, I complain that a lot of the buds that it'll get will come straight up off the branch, and while this one will get that, this one also gets buds coming off of the ends of the branches, kind of like pointing the correct way. And so, it's a little easier to work with, just as far as, you want the leaves to kind of come off the branch, not come up, straight up from the branch. And so I kind of bounce back and forth to which one I enjoy working with most. And I definitely like to keep a good variety of all kinds of different trees, so that's what I'm, that's what you're shooting for. And that's kind of also just the whole process of bonsaiing something is just, you grow it out, cut it back, grow it out, cut it back, eliminate branches you don't want, keep the ones you do want. I just wanted to show you in 3 weeks or so what this big project is going to look like, and I'm going to get back to working on the big project right now. All right, I'm going to get in here and get to work. When I see, I'm going to try to not talk too much while I'm going. When I see branches I plan on taking out altogether, I'll obviously go ahead and take them out altogether. This is a shoot that came out straight down. Everything else I'll pretty much just defoliate, get the wire off, and kind of maybe make some pruning decisions afterwards. When I work my trees, especially my ficus like this, when I do intend to defoliate and prune everything, I know that even if I'm going to keep this branch, I'm going to cut the growing tips off, so I usually defoliate up to about where there's a few leaves left, and then just go ahead and cut the whole thing off. Alright, and that is that. Whenever I do go to repot it, I think I'm going to repot the rock up just a little bit, out of the substrate a little more, and a little bit more at that angle. That should actually allow some of these front roots to become exposed. I actually did realize as I was working it, I saw this root was all shriveled up, and I said, well, like, that looks almost like it's dead. See if you guys can get a look at it there, right there. And sure enough, it's all deflated and dead. And then, right, you can probably see the difference in the bark from there to there. You can see that that's actually live. And I think if I work it here, it's going to snap right there. And there is just the slightest little aerial root coming out right there. So rather than cutting that flush, I'll leave that on there and see if it'll kind of develop and maybe come straight down, make contact right there. And then wrap around the rock that way. The only thing, I'm really liking the way the tree's turning out. The only thing I don't like is this little straight portion right here. At one time, I do think that was like up to about here, and I've kind of cut it back throughout the times. It was already really lignified when I started working on it, so there really wasn't, or when I started wiring it. I've been working on it for a long time, obviously. I did look at it for a while. I was thinking about maybe cutting all of this back and using this as the last branch and allowing this to become the apex. But I think I'd like the whole thing to just become part of it. And upon second thought, too, I think I do realize that I did cut back the apex just a bit in probably February or so, like right when we got our first sign of some spring, which towards middle end of February we'll start getting a little bit of a growth spurt. And I kind of went out and just kind of hedged off the top just a bit, because you can see all of these have no wire. It's an apically dominant tree, which means it's going to grow up before it grows anywhere else. And so that was just an explosion of growth that it had. And you could actually, if you go back and watch the last video I did, you can even see I left some growing tips up there. I'm ready to leave one there. I didn't really want to leave any right now. But I left some growing tips up there, and that really did cause the apex to just really kind of grow long there. And so I think I'm going to leave the wire off of it for a while. Here we got the beginning of some bar branch. And there's a branch. Got the two ends out here, and then there was this one coming this way and that one going in. I'm going to let it just kind of go without wire. And I think over the summer, I'm going to go ahead and just do some selective pruning, try to cut the apex back and get a bunch of ramification up in the apex to make kind of a cloud of foliage up here. And also just kind of, again, take out the shoots that come straight down, but just let all this stuff grow, let it get good and hairy. I have a theory that the more leaves on it, and the more root bound it is, which this will never really be root bound because there's all this substrate in here to hold the rock and everything, that it develops aerial roots. And there was that aerial root coming out of where that one root died, and there's actually either a branch or another root coming out right there. If it is an aerial root, now it's going to be in the sun. It's probably just going to fry right on up since I cut everything back, but I'm going to just try to get as much growth as possible, and again, just kind of keep the apex tame. And then come back, maybe even the same time next year. I wired this in December, and maybe do the same thing and just try to get the branches to set over the winter, and then give it a good hard spring again. Hard spring prune again.